So as we look at this segment of our spring fling, we are going to go over quite a bit of information. But before we go into the maintenance part of this, let's talk about the 19-inch machine that we have on, Carla. The features, why it's been so awesome, what do we love about it, and particularly you've done a lot of quilting. What is your favorite thing about the 19-inch machine?
Oh, there's not just one favorite thing. There's a lot of favorite things. So I love that it's lightweight. It's easy for me to move across my quilt. It's not quite as heavy as you're moving it as some of the other machines. I love the stitches that it makes. I also love the touch screen. I love to be able to scroll through my screen and just touch the screen. I also love that it has 19 inches of throat space. So that is just one of those great features of this machine. And also that the handles, they extend out. So they're telescoping handles so that you can move it from one direction or the other. You can move it down, so you can micro stipple, you can have them up, so you can position them and pull them out. So if you're a little shorter or height challenged and you have a hard time reaching from one end, the back of the frame to the front of the frame, you can telescope these handles out. So yeah, that's just a few. Mark.
A couple of things that you pointed out that I sure like about it too, and so does everybody else as we've been looking at these machines, is the weight. You know, it is 19 inches, but yet it is one of our lighter machines. So it's easy to move across the frame because it's very light. What I also love about it is that it's stitch regulated as well. So the regulation is built into the machine. So it's nothing added on, it's already built in. Precise regulation. We have 4 modes in the 19. We have the precise, cruise, base, and manual. And precise and cruise are 2 that are regulated, and they are very precise. So if you stop moving the machine itself stops quilting, stops stitching.
Right. So we could show you. Let's just turn it on and show you. Yeah, that's what's nice about precise mode is that you can take a minute and think about what direction you're trying to get out of. So if I stop moving it, the machine stopped moving, and I can say, oh, I'm caught in a corner. So which direction am I going to come out? And then you have to be careful because it will turn itself off. So if you wait too long, it will turn itself off because you haven't moved it. Just like your TVs. If you haven't changed the channel, it'll go off.
There you go.
So that's what's nice about precise mode.
Exactly. And then cruise mode, it just toggles up and down for a little bit. So it's great for, if you're filling in intricate patterns and you're moving the machine really slow, it's nice to have that needle to continue to go up and down for those smaller areas.
Right, and you can change the minimum speed of how fast the needle goes up and down to what you like as you're quilting. So you may want it to go up and down a little faster, or you may want it to go up and down a little slower. And that makes a difference in the style of stitch that you're making and the area that you're quilting. So those adjustments come in really handy as you get to know and understand your machine.
Absolutely. Nathan has a couple comments. Let's bring Nathan in.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions that were coming through, and I think we didn't quite get this on camera. Carla, would you mind just demonstrating again with this machine? You had brought up that one of the key important components is how easy those handles adjusted in and out. So would you mind just demonstrating that one more time so that everybody can kind of see? Because that works great if you're going to work at the back of your frame and you're going to be sewing. You could get a tired back if you didn't extend those. And then obviously you mentioned the micro handle. So let's do another quick demonstration so everybody can kind of see that.
Let's go ahead and look at the camera right here behind you.
Right here?
So
okay. Yeah, and one of the important features of these handles being able to extend out is that you're not going to bump up against the take-up pole where it will distort your quilt and cause your design to get off. And so this is how it pulls out so that you can stay away from that take-up pole. Or you can adjust them, You can have fun. You can decide which way you like. Now that's a little awkward, but you can adjust it up this way as well as you're positioning them. So it's one of those nice key features that keeps you away from and helps you with your design as you're quilting.
I'll tell you on that, Carla, real quick. Sorry, Nathan, to interject, but that right there, when we're at when we're talking to anybody and they
Right.
see that feature that you can pull out, just not that they don't need to stretch all the way back, just
No.
like you had mentioned earlier. So that feature, I love knowing that if I was vertically challenged, I can still quilt in comfort. I
Yes.
can pull my handlebars out. So.
Right.
Great. Let me ask this other question, and this isn't specific to that machine, but I'm seeing that machine on that frame, and maybe if you can just quickly clarify, like that frame is 8 feet, and then the machine's available for what other size frames? Because some of the other questions that I would have is what size quilts can I maybe do with what kind of combinations with that 19, and maybe just give us a quick snapshot of that.
Do you want to answer that, or
Go right ahead.
Okay, so with this Q-Zone Queen frame, it kind of limits you to the size quilt that you can quilt. So you have to quilt a quilt within the parameters of the poles. Now with our Q-Zone hoop frame, which the 19 will fit on as well, and the cutie frame, it does not limit you to the size quilt you can quilt. What's nice about the different frames is they also offer different features. So the hoop frames don't limit you to the size quilt. You can sit or you can stand at them, but it gives you a smaller distance in between, so you are shifting your fabric from one section to the other. Where on the Queen, you can just quilt all the way across and you just roll it up as you're quilting rather than shifting. So there are two different styles, and it just makes a difference with your budget. You can start off with one and then upgrade. You can start off with the hoop frames and graduate to a 19.
And I also want to add something to that, Nathan, to your question. We have the 19 on the Q-Zone Queen. You could actually put your own machine if you wanted to start out, right?
Yes.
You can start out smaller and work your
Right.
way up to the 19-inch machine. They could fit our 15-inch machine. And keep in mind, through the spring fling, our 15-inch and our 19-inch are on sale. So you can fit any of those machines on the Q-Zone
Right,
Queen.
and what's nice about the Q-Zone Queen as well, and the one feature that I really like, is that you can sit or stand. Did you know that this frame, if you have a nice rolling chair, is really fun to quilt on and just move across it as you're going. So it's very adjustable.
Exactly. Good questions. Anything else on that?
Now, I just want to kind of maybe bring back here briefly with part of this process. And I think we're going to have a couple segments as we move into this tomorrow amongst a few others. But one of the great things to ask yourself is, I always say, okay, what size projects are you doing, right, Carla and Mark? That's one of the key things. Oh, am I doing small projects or big projects? It's not that that's limiting or causes you not to have options, but I think it's an important thing to kind of get your mind around. And then you want to, number two, is decide how much space do I have that I can then use or look to finishing my quilts. And then that's kind of the question that decides, oh, do you start somewhere with like that cutie tabletop because you don't have a large dedicated space, or can you dedicate the 4 to 5 feet? We do have a couple varied versions of that cutie. They're upgraded. We call it the Q-Zone hoop frame, and we have a Q-Zone hoop frame pro that come with permanent legs, like the frame that Mark and Carla are standing in front, where it's height adjustable. And it has all those other components that you kind of put underneath the frame to hold. And then again, I usually ask people on the third, well, where are you at on a budget? You know, or if you're somewhere where you can get into a mid-arm machine, that's a great next step, because those machines give you more quiltable space like this 19 they're talking about. So any other thoughts that you would give to anybody who would be considering this 19, like who is the ideal customer, maybe I would say, for this 19, and maybe share some of that with us if you wouldn't mind.
Well, anybody who is ready to quilt more area, and you know, a lot of quilters start out with their home domestic machines, and then they're ready for that next step. And to be able to have a user-friendly 19-inch machine, it's just one step up from your domestic machines. It has a larger throat, so you get all those nice features that you know and love with your domestic machine, but you get the stitch regulation, you get a touch screen, you get 19 inches of throat space to quilt in, and so many more features that it just like makes it so much easier for you as a quilter.
Absolutely. And then Nathan, I'm going to go kind of build off of what you said. The questions I would ask myself is, as I'm transitioning, I have my smaller machine, I want to transition. I start asking myself, okay, cost. How easy is it to use? How easy is it to maintain? How heavy is the machine? I'm going bigger. The 19 covers all those. 19 is is very affordable. It is not heavy. It is very easy to maintain. And it is lightweight. So it checks off, if I'm checking off the list, what I'm looking for future long arm, the 19 checks all the boxes in there. And it is fast. You know, we haven't talked about the stitches per minute, but it stitches 2,000 stitches per minute. And that is really, really fast. So for those who are looking, obviously cost is one. We do have a great cost. And if you want to learn more about the 19-inch machine, our website will share a lot more with the feature sets and the cost you can see on the website. Do we have any other questions we want to get to before we move on?
Yes, you can get a ruler base. That's a good question. So all the things that you know and love that you can do, you can use the ruler base with the ruler feet, and it adds an extra element to quilting, and something that I love to do. So yes, all of our machines are unique machines. You can get a ruler base and ruler feet, and yes, quilt the way you want to quilt.
Maybe share just a little bit more. Carla, I know you did a demonstration yesterday, a sneak peek on a new ruler foot kit coming out, but you know, yes, you can buy several accessories for that, right? And maybe just, and I know this is not part, I don't want to spend a lot of time again, but I think in my mind, if I'm going to start, I kind of go like, that's great, I'm going to get a machine. But if there are these other tools, you know, why would I maybe do the ruler feet, and what are some of those other things? What additional capabilities? How does that make quilting easier for me? Just really quickly, I usually talk that there are several reasons that a consumer might want to look at those accessories and how it helps them with their quilting process as they begin.
Is that it comes with 3 individual feet, and they each do something different and specific. So you get the ruler foot, which has a higher shaft, so it can glide along the rulers easier. And I showed you one yesterday that had little pointers. It's a little sneak peek, but this ruler foot just glides along your rulers, and it allows you to create another element of design to your quilt. Then also in the kit, you get a micro stipple foot, which helps you do small, tiny little stitches to enhance an applique or inside a block that you want to have a different focus to. So you want to make little small stitches, and then you get an open toe, which works really well when you're trying to free motion feathers or a design that you need to go back over a line that you've already sewn. So it helps you have a wider focus so that you can go back over that line and not veer off. So there's so many different tools out there, and they're so fun, and they just allow you to quilt differently and allow you to add extra elements of embellishing your quilts to make it your own. Any other questions before we move on?
Now, why don't you go ahead and get into some of your recommended maintenance processes now? What are things to deal with the frame? What are a few things to do with the machines? Maybe a couple of ideas that you might have regarding that as well.
Okay.
Let's do this. So I had I'm going to start off with a quick question.
Okay.
As soon as you get our 19-inch machine, what is the first things you would want to do to get it ready and prepped to start quilting?
Okay, well, as you're pulling it out of the box, we want to make sure that we're reading our instructions. You know that as a quilter, when you're starting on a new pattern or design, it's really important to read through your instructions and you're following them, because you could miss a step and get it set up and it's not working correctly. So make sure you're reading the manual and understanding it and going through it step by step. So that's one of the most important things that I think we think, oh, I know how to do this, I don't need to look at that. But stop and take a minute and read through it.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to let you kind of talk about the maintenance, but I'm going to bring up oil real fast.
Okay.
Should we oil the machine prior to starting our quilt?
You don't need to, because it's already been done. So when you pull it out of the box, you don't need to oil it right away. So that's just something as you're sewing, yes, you'll oil the hook, but don't oil the machine right out of the box, because it's just been oiled, we've sewn off on it, and it's good to go. All
right, perfect. All right, so let's talk about the general maintenance of the machine,
okay.
And then maybe I know you have stuff you want to go over about other potential stuff, but let's go over the general maintenance.
Okay, well, when you're starting to sew, it doesn't matter. Sometimes when you've stepped away from your quilt or your machine or something and you haven't gotten back to sewing to it, little things can happen. So there's just some little pointers that every time you go to quilt that will just help you, so you're not jumping in and starting this like, what's going on? What happened? So these are just a few of the things that I would like for you to, you know, double check and look for. And that first thing is that we have small sewing rooms and we like to put things on the table and use that as storage. Well, move your machine back and forth, front to back, and make sure that it moves and glides freely and that nothing is on the table that's going to catch it. Because there's nothing more frustrating than moving along and then all of a sudden getting caught. Yes. And it's like, oh, it ruined my design. So make sure you're moving it across. And that also allows you to feel if there's like thread on the tracks or something that's inhibiting. So I want you to do a little test, okay? And I want you to take a piece of thread on your machine, even if you're using your domestic machine, and put it underneath the wheels and move it front to back. And you can definitely feel that there is a little bump in it. So make sure you're cleaning your tracks and your wheels religiously, because the lint can build up on it and you just need to wipe it down continually on every project. And sometimes if it takes you a few days to get through a project, you'll want to wipe them down a little more. So, and that lint can really get built up and it can wear on your tracks. So on the carriages. So make sure that you're wiping down the wheels of your machines. And even if you're using a domestic machine and the carriages, so wipe down the wheels on that, because threads can get caught around them and they can cause you to bump and jiggle and cause your designs to go out of kilter. So make sure that and then also make sure that you're threading your machine correctly. Now,
that's important.
Yes. And so if you're running into problems and you're frustrated and you can't figure out what it is, and you stood at your machine for a minute, walk away, and then come back with new eyes, okay? And make sure that you're following the directions of how it's supposed to be threaded. Even on your domestic machines, I can't tell you how many times people get so frustrated, you know, walk away for a second and then come back and look at the threading and make sure that you don't have it looped around something, or when you cut the thread, it can loop around anything. So make sure it's threaded correctly, and make sure that you have the thread pulled between the disc on the machine and that it's coming up over. This is on every machine out there, okay? They have this tension disc, and we want to make sure that as we're threading it, we have our upper disc and our lower disc, okay? And we want it to go across and in between. If it's on the outside of this, it can cause tension problems. If you're not caught over the tension knob and it's not pulled between, and if it's just laying on the back, it can cause tension problems. Lots of times it's hard to see that it's not pulled in the disc. When we get calls from in the tech department, if they'll just pull it towards them and then up and down, it makes such a difference, because those discs pull in on the thread and they help create the tension in the machine. So really important. And then make sure that your needle is in correctly. Rookie mistake all the time. I have actually put in the needle backwards and felt really stupid, but make sure that it's the right direction. And the scarf should be towards the back. Now with your domestic machines, you have the flat edge, so it's a lot easier, but with the longer arm, mid to longer machines, you have a rounded shaft. So make sure that you feel that little indent. It's called the scarf on the back of the machine. So it's towards the back. So yeah, don't do the mistake. And that's where the light bar comes in really handy, because I didn't have the light bar at the time and it made all the difference in the world to have good lighting so you can see how to thread it.
I'm going to quickly ask a question. If we did get lint or stuff build up around the wheels and on the track, what's the best way to clean that off our wheels? Because it could get hard enough, right? Not hard enough, but it stays on there pretty good.
Yeah, it does. And it gets, So sometimes I'll take my fingernail because it's really ground on that wheel because we haven't wiped it off. I would take a damp cloth. I wouldn't take alcohol because it has a tendency to dry out the tracks and stuff. But you know, you can use what you need to use, but do not use
static or
so don't use something like that, or Clorox. That's what I was going to say. Don't use the Clorox wipes. They cause a sticky residue, which will make the lint even actually more stick to your wheels even more. If you'll notice that as you're cleaning your bathroom, they're great for cleaning and they're 99.9% pure, free of germs. However, it has this little residue that the lint will really stick to. So use water or vinegar water as well. So
perfect. Now I would probably imagine, I know some of the questions like how that happens. So if your wheel is built up, would you just move your machine and keep something on that wheel?
Yes,
to
that's
clean
a good
that off,
way
right?
to. Yes, that's a good way to clean it off. And we did get our Kleenexes here, so Mark,
All right,
show them.
I will. All right, let me blow my nose first. Okay. So here we have a wheel. I don't know if we can get a good picture of it. Maybe not, but our wheel's underneath there. So all I'm going to do, all right, we can see one perfect, is I'm going to put this on the wheel and I'm just going to press down on the wheel and move the machine backwards and forward and just do that a couple of times, right? Until I can see that what was on there is off. And it does a pretty good job. I do have some on here right now. So it does a really good job on doing just that. And I would imagine you do the same thing for your carriage back and forth the other way, right?
Really important. And you can tell that these dual wheels, they are a little flatter wheels, so they have a tendency to get more lint on them as you're moving across your quilt. So it's really important to clean them. Also, as you're putting your machine on your frame, adjusting the wheels on your machine. I don't know if a lot of you miss this step, but it's really important. There are little set screws on the back of the wheels on the machine that you can adjust the wheels to make sure that they're sitting on the tracks. And that's a really important step to make it so that as you're moving across your quilt, you won't get that unevenness and feel the little bumps and the pulls as you're quilting across it. So make sure that you adjust those wheels.
That's a great point. And I would suggest any of our machines you get, the 15, 19, or 21, any of our frames upon setup is to do just that. Keep the bolts you need loose so when we move it back and forth, you could essentially line the track with the wheel so that it will go smooth back and forth and front to back, right?
Yes, so you're doing that on your frames before you put the machine on it, but you also need to align the wheels with the top carriage. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. What else do we have on the maintenance side?
Oh, let's talk about the bobbin and the hook, okay? And cleaning it. So let's open it up and you can see that it's had a lot of use and it's pretty linty. You know, the spray air, that's really nice. Just don't breathe in as you're spraying it. You get a little hairball down your throat. So not good. So just stand back here and spray it so that you're away from all the debris that's coming out. And make sure you clean it out religiously. Just like when you're piecing your quilts, you need to clean out that lint and make sure that there's no threads caught around the hook. Now the hook is where you're going to insert the bobbin case. Now, when you're putting your bobbin case in, you never want to pull on the lever, but when you're pulling it out, you'll want to pull on the lever. So I'm taking this off. So anyway, you'll want to pull on the lever to take it out, but when you're putting it in, you want to make sure that it's straight across and that as you're pushing it in, you're not pulling on that lever at all, and that you will just take your thumb and you'll hear it snap. When you hear it snap, that means it's inserted correctly. So,
perfect.
And I can take it out.
Why are you doing that? I just thought of something. I see this often, and I hear about it often. Let's say they're making sure that it's working right. They don't have any fabric that they're quilting, and they just want to make sure maybe the encoders are working and it's all threaded. What happens if they keep the machine threaded while they kind of test the encoders? It gets ground down in your bobbin case without, being able to pull the knots. So there's no place for those knots to go, but down inside this hook area. So it makes a mess down there.
It makes a big mess. So unthread it if you're testing it to hear it. and make sure that that thread's not going down there, especially if you don't even have the bobbin case inserted, because it'll cause some, a little cleanup for you. Okay, so let's talk about the bobbin case and pulling on it. And I know Cody talked a little bit about it yesterday as well, but you want to make sure that as you're pulling on it, that it's turning the correct direction, clockwise. And let me just show you. I don't know which way to show it so it's not opposite.
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay, and see, you can see the little lines in the little circle as I'm pulling on it. And now I just want to hold it in my hand, and you'll notice that I feel a little tension on it, just a little, but that's all I need. And I feel like I'm better than a toe tension gauge, so it's perfect. So anyway, and now I'm just going to insert it back in, and as you're quilting, just make sure that you oil your hook every quilt. And that's around in this area, but don't start sewing on it. After you've oiled it, get a piece of cloth or fabric and then sew on it to get that extra oil out of it before you start quilting. So,
perfect. These are all been great. I know Nathan probably have a few questions or comments that we want to bring in.
Yeah, I had one question I wanted to re-ask again. This came up a couple different times, and I love this. Susan, thanks for asking this question. And I think we mentioned it, but I think because we go through this process so quickly, I want a little more understanding. When you put that bobbin case back in, you talked about the alignment of the release lever, and then you talk about don't hold the release lever. Why is it so important not to have that release lever out as you're putting that in? And kind of talk about what would or could happen if you did, and then what are we trying to avoid by not doing that really quick?
Great questions. Well,
I've talked a lot.
Yeah, because you're doing a fantastic job. Yeah, that's a great point. The lever that we're talking about, I'm going to bring this back out again. And you're exact. So here's what will happen. So here's the lever. I'm going to come in a little closer. Okay. So there is a lever that Nathan is talking about, or the arm that's on the bobbin case. And if we pull that out while we put that back into the machine, I know for myself, when I did this the very first time, is I thought it was in all the way on that shaft underneath there. I thought it was in because I didn't hear a snap. So what happened next was not so good.
No.
If you pull that arm out and put it in and then go ahead and start quilting, 10 out of 10 times, that needle is going to come down and hit right on top of the bobbin case and potentially and possibly will throw the machine out of timing if you don't catch it in time. So now we have a timing bit, and that can be a major issue, but Grace Company, we provide you with the right tools and resources to time your own machine if that indeed happens. But we definitely don't want to go down that road. We want to prevent that. So like Carla showed earlier.
This is true, Mark. I just want to interject. Yeah. Even on your domestic machines, do not pull on the lever. This doesn't matter what sewing machine this is. This is a mid to long arm and your domestic machines that you're using.
Right. And it's simple.
Right.
We have quilters, we know right. Not to, right? And it's just 101, quilting 101, but it still amazes me on how we still do that.
Well, and the lever makes it easy for you to hang on to it. So, so why wouldn't you want to hold on to it?
That's right. So without holding on, Carla, I'm going to have you put that back in because you're on a better angle than me. So let's put that back in.
I'm just going to make sure that it's just aligned straight across. And I try to do this so that I can do it and reach under there and I don't have to bend down and do it. And that's what I like about the long arms and it being open right here in the front. And then I just push it in and snap it. And I didn't take the lever out at all. I just pushed it in.
And snapped it. And I like to, for good measures, I just always
that's a good idea.
Tap it when it's in there. Again, that assures me and you when we're quilting that needle now, if we were to push that needle up and down and we just do a little quilting, it sounds good. It's not hitting any of the bobbin casing. And we're ready and good to go.
Great. If you have questions, again, I would ask that you look at on our website or feel free again. I'm going to put this up there. Call our 800 number again is just a quick reminder. Call 1-800-264-0644. You can also chat at graceframe.com. So again, there is great compatibility. Mark and Carla, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and kind of say we're going to get back to you here in a little bit as we move forward